Welcome to Not Your Average Neighbor, the podcast celebrating inspiring individuals and the amazing work they do in our community. I'm Ann Roshar, your host, inviting you to join me as we shine a light on stories of resilience, connection, and good news. Let's build a neighborhood that uplifts and inspires, one story at a time. Howdy, neighbors. It's Ann Roshar, your hostess with the mostest, not your average neighbor podcast, not your average realtor, right here in Cedar Rapids. And this is going to be airing August 17th. And 1 year ago today, August 18th, something significant happened to our family. But August 19th, we met a few wonderful neighbors, and they have been in our lives ever since. I am calling out my neighbors, my friends, Angel and Harold, Abby and Paxton, Mimi and Caleb, and so many others that came and rallied around my family during that really stressful, hard time. And I just appreciate you guys all so much. And one of those magnificent neighbors is here with me today. So let's welcome Angel Ramirez.
Hi, I'm so
Hi.
excited to be here with you today.
I know, honey. I am too. And I know that we're all like, what do we do? Should we talk about it? Blah, blah, blah. But again, just the way that you guys showed up for our family was outstanding. And we just are cannot extend the gratitude that we have for all of you during that crazy time and being Jack's friend and just, really hanging out with them and hanging in there with us and helping us with all the things. So we just love you all so much. So that being said, Angel, people may or may not know Angel. If you follow Iowa politics at all, or the state representatives we have in our city, Angel is the representative in the 78th district.
Yes, yeah, the 78th.
Yay! I did it.
I'm so proud of you. Yes.
Well, yes, but I remember that for a couple of reasons, but we
Mhm,
won't talk about that because we waiting to celebrate that news when it comes. So
mhm, mhm.
anyway, so I feel like I met you maybe briefly before that event, but I just knew that you were a person that really you shine a light. And I love to shine lights on people doing wonderful things in our community. And you are absolutely one of those people. So let's kind of start back to the beginning of how you landed in Iowa because you're not
Yeah,
a native to Iowa. So let's talk
yeah.
about that first.
Yes, please. So I'm a transplant to Iowa. I was born in California, but really was raised in Arizona. And I was a first generation college student. I knew I was going to be, and so it was important to me that whatever college I chose, right, it really helped bring opportunity into my life, but also my family's life, right, setting up success to build generational wealth and impact my community. When I was in high school, in 2016, that was during the kind of pivotal presidential elections, right? And I'm Hispanic. My family is from Mexico, and I was seeing all this rhetoric that was labeling whole groups of people, my own community, but also a lot of other communities, with kind of this like general negative kind of connotation around immigrants, around the LGBTQ plus community, around people who were just trying to build a family, build a home, you know, find access to the American dream. And that really energized me. I became interested in politics, and really specifically how policy could help people's lives if our government chose to do that. If our government
Hmm.
invest in building up the quality of life that every person deserves, in my opinion. So all that to say, I had learned about Coe College in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, a small private liberal arts school, and how they're kind of like in the center of Cedar Rapids, right next to downtown, next to the nonprofit corridor. And I was really interested, and they happened to reach out to me and offer to fly my mom and I out, which was like unheard of, right? Like, what do you mean a college wants to fly me out? I just, the privilege of being able to do that was indescribable. And so when I came out and visited Co, I was still in high school, and I just fell in love. I fell in love with the outside Cedar Rapids community, with the small nature of the school, and how willing they were to lean into those tough conversations of the political kind of atmosphere and ecosystem that we live in. So I went to Co. I studied political science and social and criminal justice. I minored in religion. And there I met the most incredible people. I met the most incredible faculty and staff. I met my partner at Co. And I was also able to kind of get involved in the outside Cedar Rapids community, the Lynn County community. And I fell in love. I was not, admittedly, I was not expecting to fall in love with Cedar Rapids, Iowa, but I did. I did. I think, you know, as a transplant and someone who was raised in California, Arizona area, like I was expecting to want to go back. But what I found here was a community that stands so firmly for other people, right? The neighbor that you've never met. People care about the person 2 blocks down that you will literally never meet in your lifetime, but you still care about their ability to buy a home, their ability to find a job, their ability that pays well, right? Gives good benefits, their ability to have their kids go to a good public school. These were things that I discovered in my collegiate journey, and being able to be involved in the nonprofit sector, work on some campaigns when I was in college. And so when I graduated, I knew that I wanted to stay. And yeah, fast forward, I have a really great job through Kids First Law Center. I was able to be in a middle school, at one point a middle school and a high school, doing peace facilitation work. So it looks like trying to break that school to prison pipeline by finding alternative ways to educate students and build up skills that they might have gaps in. And it's really a gun violence prevention program. And like through that work, I saw, you know, in college, I saw and read about the big systems, right? The systems that fail to meet the moment, fail to meet the needs of everyday people trying to put food on the table and be able to afford to take their family out to dinner once in a while, right? I think that's a right? I don't think that's
No, that's not a no, that is absolutely
everyone
right.
everyone deserves to be able to go on vacation in the wealthiest country in the world. So I read about the big systems. Some of my own things in my own personal life kind of lended to my understanding of those systems. But being in a public school in a state where we have stripped dollars from our public education system, and then seeing the impact on kids, that's what really drove me to eventually run for office and want to change it from the inside out.
Oh my gosh, I have just goosebumps listening to you talk because you're so passionate and so well versed
Oh,
in all of this, and I just admire your smarts, because obviously I have none. My guy no, like just the way that you speak is so eloquent and so passionate, and I just love it. And I did not realize that that's what the Kids First law firm was doing kind of in the
yeah, yeah,
community. As far as my impression was that it was kind of to help kids have a voice, right, in the justice system. So I really love that and is that what you're continuing to do this year?
yes, yeah. So, I try to keep my two separate hats on. But
Yeah.
so I'm taking off my political hat for a moment to talk about Kids First because I love the
Yes.
organization.
Yes.
They are just so incredible. So they have two major programs. They represent kids in high conflict divorce cases. Often in really high conflict divorce cases where parents or guardians cannot come up with a solution, the kid's voice is often negated in the court process.
Mhm.
It doesn't matter what the kid thinks or believes or feels. But we know that in these high conflict cases, oftentimes there are other components that we need to take into consideration. Maybe the child has seen really ugly fights. Maybe they themselves have been subjected to picking sides, right? So this is a court ordered attorney that represents the kid's best interest as it relates to the kid's opinions, the kid's feelings.
Mhm.
So it's
Mm.
really gives kids a voice in the legal system, which is a rarity in my opinion. And then the other program that they do is the peace facilitation program. And that's where they have something called peace facilitators in the Cedar Rapids Community School District. We're expanding into other districts actually this year, which is really, really exciting. We'll be in Prairie, we'll be at CR Prep. And these peace facilitators, their main job is to help resolve conflict between students and then between students and teachers. So what ends up happening, right? We have kids, the ones that I work with the most are often kids with these external obstacles, parents who are incarcerated, parents who struggle with addiction and substance use, parents who are working multiple jobs and can't afford to spend as much time at the home, or kids in foster care, kids living with grandparents. And so if you can imagine, right, how that manifests often, and so, often it results in skill deficits. So that might look like conflict resolution skill deficits. So a kid gets angry and their go-to is to fight. That's a moment for learning, right? But we don't really see it as that often in the education system. But there's a reason why a kid's brain is going towards fight or flight and they're choosing fight. So our job is to help mediate the conversation between two kids or more who are in conflict, who might end up fighting, or worse, it might escalate into gun violence into the community. So how do we intervene before that happens? We're in the schools and we're
Wow.
helping we're teaching them the skills of empathy, perspective taking, right? How do you also name and convey your own emotions in a healthy way? And these are all skills that we want fellow adults to have, right?
Absolutely. I'm thinking about like how some adults would benefit from this.
Exactly, exactly. And the beautiful part is it's voluntary for the kids. And what ends up happening is that kids self-refer for the service. So I have kids who are asking, they're like, I know me and so are going to get into it if we don't have, we call it circles, the mediations, we call them restorative circles. It's rooted in indigenous practices. There's an incredible history behind them. Anyway, they'll say, I need a circle. Miss Angel, I need a circle. And so then we'll mediate, we'll resolve it, and they move forward in the classroom, in the school system, and outside in the community in a more peaceful way. And then with students and teachers, sometimes those behavioral issues can look like, teachers are already underpaid, overworked, and they quite literally do not have the time to sit and help kids build these specific skills, right? And so we're there as also a support for staff, and then being able to mediate conflict between staff and students just helps the environment of the classroom go more peacefully. It's becomes more effective. Um, and often, kids have an idea that like this teacher hates me, this teacher hates me, and so they'll kind of respond in that kind of lashing out way. And this also helps mediate those conversations. So yeah, it is just an incredible program that I'm very lucky to be a part of. Even while I'm being elected, I feel very lucky because it's kind of that like on the ground skill building and on the ground gun violence prevention work that I feel very passionate about. So being able to do both the big system and the day to day is something that I feel very privileged to be able to do.
I love this so much. I had no idea that that was another part of it. I guess I apologize. I didn't understand that that's what you did. I knew you were in
Wow.
the school systems as a
Mhm.
mediator, but What a important job that you have. And what a great resource this is to kids. I'm thinking I was just at my 35-year class reunion on Saturday evening.
Congratulations.
I know I don't look a day over 21.
No, you
I'm
did
just kidding.
not.
I certainly don't act a day over 21, but I think about, the kids back then even, and we had like we had a security officer, and it was this woman, shout out Cass. She was like our security officer who just, I'm sure, didn't love her job at all because like we were always being naughty. But so to have this resource, who is
Yeah,
that? Can I ask who is that funded by, as far
yeah.
as like how does do we can we donate to Kids First Law Firm?
Oh,
Like,
yeah.
let's learn more about this as we so we
Yeah.
can help keep it in our community.
I really appreciate that question. We're a community partner to the Cedar Rapids Community School District and other districts. And so the funding that the districts get are usually from the state, right? So every time that we strip dollars from the state, that strips dollars not only for our own program to be invested in, but also every other community partner like Tanager. Tanager does a lot of really incredible work with the kids and mental health. Foundation 2. There are some really incredible organizations that are in Cedar Rapids that fill different gaps. Um, and every time we take money from the public schools, that's money that they cannot invest in community partners. So that's one, avenue. We also do an annual happy hour. It's usually in April. It's super fun. That's a place where like the community can come together and donate and purchase raffle tickets and like all these really fun things. We try to make it a really fun community event. So yeah, I mean, we also do individual donations, which we always appreciate.
Mhm,
Corporate donations and grants. That's something that we always have to be thinking about. Yeah,
mhm.
age where
Well,
is limited through the school district, you have to be more creative and rely on your community. But then it comes to the question, when every organization is relying on community,
yeah.
that's usually a pretty good indicator that we need to have investments from the state or federal level.
Well, good, good. We will share the Kids First Law Firm Facebook and website so that people know and can learn more. And, are there volunteer opportunities there as well? Where is there anything needed in that capacity?
Yeah, yeah. So sometimes we do community events that we could always use volunteers for. Sometimes the volunteers looks like putting stamps on the mail
Yeah.
cards, like the thank you letters, that kind of
Yep.
stuff, more like in the office. But it every time someone is able to volunteer doing those things, that frees up, a peace facilitator or an attorney being able to do what they're doing day to day. So we'll take any and all help for sure.
Awesome,
Yeah. And
awesome. Well, I have
appreciating
so
for
many neighbors, that always ask, "How do I get involved? How to" it's like, well, open your eyes because it everyone needs help, but, I love to be able to direct people to make an immediate impact as well, so I love that so much. Thank you for sharing that with us.
Yeah,
So
yeah.
now let's kind of get into this political
Yeah,
arena
I'll
that
switch the
you.
hats. I'll switch the hats.
Yes. Okay. Switch your hat back to
Yeah.
politics. Yes, politician. And I know that you you were elected and ran office, was moving into a different role. And so, how did you and Sammy get connected?
Yeah, so I actually knew Sammy beforehand. So in 2019, I interned under the Lynn County Board of Supervisors, which at the time was Stacy Walker, Brent Olson, and Ben Rogers. And Stacy and Sammy have a really great friendship. So I was able to meet Sammy through my work, interning for the Lynn County Board of Supervisors. So it was really full circle when he moved over to the supervisors and it opened up his seat. And I'd been asked a few times before this to consider running for office, but I never felt ready. I think as women and as a woman of color, right, as a young woman of color, like we get in our heads. We get in our heads of like, are we capable? It
And age does not have anything to do with that, by the way. Age has
and
nothing to do with that.
genuinely, women are told this all the time,
Yes.
and we
Yes.
think about it all the time. And so there's a statistic out there. I'd have to pull the exact number, but it exemplifies how women have to be asked like 10 times more than men to run for office before they actually do. And it's just compounded by any additional marginalized identity that you might have. And so I'd been asked a few times, but I had never quite felt ready. But being in the political space, I realized this might be a hot take. There are a lot of people who are in office who do not understand the privilege of being in office. There are a lot of people in office who do not understand the responsibility that they have to every community member that they serve, but also everyone else that would be impacted by your policy. I have a district. My district is like mostly downtown Cedar Rapids, Mountain View, Wellington Heights area. I cover Coe College, Mount Mercy. But every policy that I advocate for will impact every Iowan in the state. And there are a lot of people in office who I realized are not doing that. And so, that energized me more. That energized me more to be that voice that not only helps advocate to protect things that have been stripped away from the party across the aisle, but also help my own party be better. I think
Mhm.
that my own party has a lot to learn, and I want to be a part of that movement for change. So, yeah, Sammy was really supportive when I threw my hat in the race. I had to get the Democratic nomination from my local county central committee, so it was a different kind of campaigning for the first like week and a half. And it was through something called a special election, which means that it's an election outside of the typical November, right? Like general election. So the whole process was like 3.5 weeks. It was in a short amount of time. And the first half of that was me campaigning to the central committee members who would then choose their Democrat that they would say is their nominee. And then I run in the regular special election where I had a Republican opponent. So yeah, I managed to get the Democratic nomination. I think because people are ready for change. People are ready for a strong vision for what we could be, what Iowa could be. We were progressive once. I stand on that, and we could get back to that. Um,
Mhm.
and so yeah, I was privileged enough to get the Democratic nomination. And then I started knocking doors like crazy, letting people know that there was an election, what our campaign kind of stood for, and we won with 78% of the votes, which is huge.
That
I,
is huge.
yeah, and again, very privileged to represent a movement greater than myself. I learned after I got the Democratic nomination that I would be the first Latina elected into the Iowa State Legislature, period.
Yeah.
And I mean, I cannot express to you the mixed emotions that I had. I was both humbled and excited and also heartbroken and angry
Yeah.
that it took that long,
Yeah.
And so to be elected at 78% of my community saying we support and believe in you in the age of ICE, in the age of civil rights protections being rolled back in the state and on the federal level, I mean, it represents something bigger than just me. It represents a movement for something better. And I feel really lucky to be a part of it.
I'm like tearing up just remembering all the hard work that you and your incredible friend group and
Oh my gosh.
volunteers put into
Thank you.
just getting the word out about who you are and what you stand for. And I was just so delighted and so proud to be able to know you, call you friend, but hear these words and say, yes, we
Mhm,
need to change the this conversation to bad versus good, and
mhm.
and this is, it's not about that. It's about the
Right.
entire community, and let's make it a better community for all.
Yes.
And yes, it's very difficult sometimes to, I'm sure, wake up and go and speak to people who may not understand that heavy load that they have on their shoulders of representing their community. So it's just, you are probably a teacher to many without even knowing, because of the way that you don't shove it down people's throats. You're
Mhm,
just like, this is the way it is. And
mhm.
what a gift. Thank
Oh,
you.
so much. You're gonna make me emotional. No, I had such an incredible team of volunteers and people who are still really engaged with the campaign. And again, like this greater movement towards progress. And a lot of them I didn't know beforehand. So I mean, I think it's really important that like we understand as elected officials, like we are relying on our community members for so many things. And part of it is if they don't believe in our campaign, if they don't believe in the message, we're doing something wrong. Because the
Mhm,
reality is the message of everyone deserves health care, everyone deserves the ability to make choices for their body that their selves and their doctors decide are best. Everyone deserves food on the table and public education. Like those are not partisan issues. Everyone can agree with those things. And how we get there, the role that government has to play in that is kind of the question. And what we've seen is a politic that does not deliver for people. It does
mhm,
not make a difference in people's everyday lives. And that's not how it has to be. Like, that's the
mhm.
beautiful part of it, of what could happen, is that's not how it has to be. And we're starting to see that in other places like New York City with Zohran Mamdani, where he's delivering and people are able to see for the first time or in a very long time a government that delivers for them.
Yeah.
And I think we could do that in Iowa. Like we absolutely can. We just have to be clear about how we get there.
Mhm. Now, bringing that up, you are running again in November. You're unopposed, but still,
Mhm.
you, I know that it is your passion to have, to introduce yourself to those who may be on the fence or may not see eye to eye with you, because then if you can break through with them and make an impact and make them remember that you are fighting for them, like, that is special, I'm sure, when that happens.
Yeah. No,
Um,
it's so incredible.
yeah, go ahead.
I was at a tabling event this last month called Art in the Park. A good shared friend of ours, Abby Long and Paxton Williams, they run this event in Wellington Heights Neighborhood Association, and it's just an incredible event with community partners and everything. And my our campaign was tabling there. And yes, I don't have an opponent this year. But it's still important to me that I'm out in the community building
Yes.
relationships, coalition building, all of those things, and answering people's questions and hearing their concerns so I can take it back to the Capitol this next legislative session. I met a lifelong Republican there, and we got to talking about data centers, and we got to talking about our cancer crisis here in Iowa. And I was very clear, like, cancer knows no party, right? It doesn't discriminate against Republicans or Democrats. And so I see it as it should be a nonpartisan issue. And unfortunately, I haven't seen it be treated as such in the Capitol. And
Mhm.
so, we just like started talking on a very human level. And he walked away with, "You're going to be the first Democrat that I vote for in November." And
Wow.
for me, that is such a humbling experience to hear that, like, personally.
Absolutely.
But
Yes.
I also think it's a testament to, like, it's not just me who is saying this, and I think that people are starting to see that if you don't have electeds who serve you, regardless of party, if you don't have electeds that are prioritizing the thing that the people need prioritized, vote them out. And
Right.
it's like, if and I feel the same regardless of party, which
Right.
can also be considered a hot take, but, like,
Well,
you know,
sure, sure,
it
but
shouldn't
politics is not perfect. No
it's not.
one is perfect in any arena, but certainly the scrutiny that politicians get, and rightfully so in some points, but then others like, oh my God, I couldn't ever think about being a politician because of how your lives are just open to like, geez,
A little bit,
yeah,
but
yeah.
it's something that's very much worthwhile, the privilege of being in this position, for sure.
Absolutely, absolutely, and that I love that that is your message. You're like,
Yeah, we have a responsibility and, like,
"If
I'm
not
a firm
you,
believer.
who?" You know? If
Exactly,
not
and
you.
I'm a firm believer that politics should be accessible. I think that we need more working class people, people who have understood the struggle to be in office. And, in the state legislature, I'm very transparent about this. We get paid $25,000 a year. So you need to have another job in order to be in this. And I don't think that's right. But additionally, what we end up seeing though is because people's jobs aren't flexible, because it's difficult to maintain two jobs when one of them really should be a full-time position to serve, their constituencies. A lot of people who are in the position of a legislator in Iowa end up being independently wealthy or retired. So
Mhm,
seeing the full scope of the working class issues that
mhm,
we really need to be seeing at the Capitol.
mhm, So what's the one thing that surprised you the most that you were not expecting in your first term as a state representative? Is there one, or are there more, but is there one that comes to mind immediately when you think about this last year in your journey?
Yeah. If I'm going like most difficult surprising thing, I
Yeah.
think that I knew that there were going to be a lot of culture war bills, bills that in my opinion distract from the working class issues that we're seeing, issues
Yes.
around affordability or the cancer crisis, or water quality, all of those things. I still somehow underestimated the amount of culture war bills that I saw. The
Mhm,
amount of times that I got up on the floor to defend different marginalized communities in Iowa was very hard. I mean,
mhm,
it was a disgusting amount of times. And
mhm,
again, I just felt like it was a distraction. Like it was being used as political chess. And I think Iowans are tired of that. Like,
mhm,
okay, we understand your position on trans students. I disagree with that position that the state has made. But Iowans also, that is not the issue that they are discussing at the kitchen table.
mhm. No, they
They're
aren't.
discussing how they're gonna pay for gas. They're
Right.
discussing how they're gonna pay for groceries, or rent, or their mortgage. Like, they're not discussing whether the very small amount of trans students are on the basketball team, right? Like, but that's what you would
Yeah.
think is the number one issue that we're seeing as a state, and that's
Yeah,
just
yeah.
it's based on
It's such a diversion, and
yes,
just let's make sure that this is what we talk about because really we're not going to do anything about the other things. So why,
exactly.
you know? And I just I you know, I saw you realtors go on the hill and I think it was early on in the year and I was just like, "Girl, this is you've got thicker skin than I, because I would just get spitting angry probably. But you're very articulate, whereas I am like blah, blah, blah. So,
No,
uh, but just it's such an important job to have at an age where people are just still figuring out life sometimes, you know?
yes, yes.
Just it's so impressive, Angel. I know that you know that I'm just like always like fangirling because I think you're amazing and your partner as well. I mean, you're both amazing. But I feel blessed to know you and
Oh,
to hear you speak like this. It's just energizing for us. And so, with that, what is one thing that you want younger people in Iowa that can vote in November? This isn't about parties. This is about why does voting matter? Why should you register?
yeah.
Give us that take, please.
Yeah. I've heard this a few times, but I like to say, like, if you're not at the table, you're on the menu. And so if you're not being involved in the conversation, chances are your perspective, your lived experience, your thoughts, opinions, perspectives are being left out. And every time that you're voting, you're able to exercise that right to be at the table. So I want everybody to feel like they have a place in politics. And I'll be honest, there's a lot of work to do both sides of the aisle in our whole political system to make that happen.
Mhm.
But it cannot happen without the voice of the upcoming generation. A lot of people say the young people are our future. I like to see it as the young people are our now. You are already living in the systems that politics have created for you, right? You're already living in a world where you have to do school shooting drills more often than you do fire drills. You're already in a world where you're having to decide, am I going to have crippling student debt, or am I going to try to find a job straight out of school, and still be able to find success and generational wealth? You're already facing all of these things. And so having a voice in the process of how to fix those things is really, really important. Yeah, and yeah, you are now. So just like everyone else, you should have the same voice at the table, and voting is a way to do that. And beyond that, like finding a candidate that you really resonate with, and potentially running for office yourself. Like we
Yes.
need more young voices in those spaces because those
Yes.
decisions are being made for us. The
Yeah.
decisions on those things like gun control, reproductive rights, student loans, those are being made for us. So, yeah, that would be my encouragement to young people, but really, really to anyone, but particularly young people. I feel very passionate about it. And, I think that sometimes people could get a little scoldy with young people not voting. But the reality is, I think we are in an age where young people are growing up and seeing a government that doesn't work for them.
Mhm.
Easy to feel fatigue. And I
Mhm.
acknowledge that that fatigue comes from lived experience.
Right.
It's the same way when people say like, "I can't watch the news anymore." That's fatigue. That's not apathy. And so
Mhm.
we have to address it as an issue of fatigue and exhaustion of a system that doesn't work for them, as opposed to people just don't care. Because that's not what I've found. People care. They just want to see a politic that serves them. So
And they would more likely than not, I would think, they feel like their voice isn't being heard
yeah,
at this point, at
yeah.
this juncture in our society as a whole. I know that there's people my age that feel that way, but
Mhm.
if you don't vote, you can't complain, period. You cannot do, you can't.
I feel like voting is one of the first and most important ways, especially in local elections. We have a general coming up this November. It has offices like my office on it, but it also has U.S. Congress, our U.S. House of Representatives seat, our U.S. Senate seat, and a governor's race. And all three of those, every vote will count.
Every vote will
Every vote will count. I met a gentleman this past weekend. I was at a political conference for young elected officials, actually, and one of them lost their first race by one vote. One
count.
singular vote. They had to do a recount, but it was one vote. I met another person who won their district by 52 votes. So think about that. That could be the case for Iowa, and what you don't want to have happen is beat yourself up for not going out and voting if it's down that few numbers, right? So like
Right.
don't underestimate the power of your vote. I know it can be hard to see the
Yes.
impact. And
Yes.
that's why it's important that it doesn't just stop at voting. It's voting and then keeping your electeds accountable. It's showing up for candidates that you really, really resonate with, and potentially running for office yourself. It doesn't stop with voting, but it definitely starts there.
It definitely does start there. I love the way that you put that, and I know that for many, it may seem intimidating or uncomfortable, or you just don't feel you're smart enough, or blah, blah, blah. But
Mhm.
your voice matters regardless of the outcome. It's the voice of the people are the one. That's who wins. Those are the people who vote. So I wonder how and when, like, just thinking about next events that are coming up for
Yeah.
you and for Lynn County, for the state. Are there
Mhm.
opportunities for not only younger voters, but any age voter to volunteer or listen and learn? We can all learn from each other. And I think we stop listening because we don't want to hear what there is a message in there somewhere, and you just gotta have the patience and the tenacity to kind of figure that out. So, long story short, please share your events that are coming up.
Yes, yes. So some of them are community events that I wanted to highlight, or community organizations that continuously do events. So one of them is Escucha Mi Voz partners with St.
Yes.
Paul's United Methodist Church. They do ICE accompaniments um, every first Tuesday of the month. And that is where you can help immigrants that are going through their ICE check-ins. You can support their families and make sure that everyone gets out of those ICE check-ins being able to stay in our community. Bloomworks is another really great local organization that's providing direct support to immigrants that are being housed and detained in the Lynn County Jail. They always need more volunteers, and you'll get training and all of that on how that volunteering looks. There's an organization, a coalition of organizations called the Justice and Liberation Coalition. Every first Monday of the month, they have a 30-minute call, just 30 minutes that you can zoom into, and they lay out the legislative landscape of what's happening. This is especially important once our session comes into play, the legislative session, which is from January to around end of April, May. Um, because then you get real-time updates on bills that are going through that you can help advocate for or against. And then they also give upcoming events in the community that move to advance justice and liberation. Lindsey James is the U.S. House congressional candidate running as a Democrat in this seat. I have been a huge supporter of her of hers from the first day that I met her. I think she has the same vision that I share and that so many people share of moving our state and our country towards progress. She's having a crowded table tour. So she's visiting numerous counties and cities across Iowa in her district, and she's coming to Cedar Rapids on September 3rd at
Nice.
6:30. You can RSVP and get the location through their Facebook events. So that's Lindsey James Crowded Table Tour. And then you can see me at Festival Latino on September 12th here in Cedar Rapids at the McGrath Theater. It happens all day. There's food vendors and nonprofits and music. It's a wonderful community event. And then Asian Fest is also an event that I wanted to shout out. It's always full of, again, same thing, community partners, movements, dancers, and great food. And that's on
Great
September
food.
6th. Yeah, great food.
Mhm.
For me personally, I'll be having a fundraiser in Hispanic Heritage Month. And if people are interested, we're always taking volunteers to door knock and canvas. And really, like in the age of campaigning, like we take all the help that we can get, whatever time resources you can provide. So for that, you can just follow my Facebook and message us there. But yeah, there's amazing events. I know Rob Sand is still doing his tour for the governor's race, and he'll be coming to Cedar Rapids within the next few weeks, is what I heard. I think the details are still kind of being worked out, but yeah, you can follow us on Facebook or Instagram, and we'll have all the information there.
And your Facebook and Instagram are state
Ramirez for Iowa.
Ramirez for Iowa. Okay, wonderful. Well,
Yeah,
thank you. Thank you so much for stopping by my neighborhood today. It is now more than ever important that we all, work together instead of the opposite.
yes,
And I
agreed.
just feel really blessed again that I know you and get to call you friend, but get to see you working so hard for our community. So
Oh,
thank you, thank you, thank
I
you.
so much, and the feeling is so mutual. You're chosen family at this point. So,
Oh, for
yeah,
sure, for
I am
sure.
so blessed and privileged to be to have you as a friend. So thank you for letting me kind of share my thoughts on your podcast. I've had such a great time.
Yay, 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 yay. Well, again, thank you so much. And we will see you next week, neighbors. But don't too like, follow, share. That's like all you have to do. It's completely free. All you have to do, follow, share, maybe make a comment that Angel Ramirez is a rock star. Yes, she is. That all helps my little neighborhood grow. And again, if you have any neighbors that you would like me to shout out or you think would be a great guest, please reach out. I can't do this alone. And again, I go out in the community and I find people, but I'd love to know your neighbors too. So you can hear us on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Amazon Music, all of the things and the YouTubes. And we will see you next week. But thank you. Thank you, Angel. And we'll see you
Thank you so
soon.
much. Bye.